Thank you so much for joining in, Fredrik.
Thanks for the opportunity.
It's a pleasure to have you. If you're already ready, I would suggest that we dive already into it, as it's already 10 past the beginning. I think the attendees, if they want to join, will join over time.
And it's a conversation rather than a presentation, or do you want me to present something as well?
It's a fireside chat, Fredrik. So we're here to listen to you, following some questions that we've prepared, of course, and some questions from the audience. So there's there's no particular slides that you had to prepare, but we are very keen to hear your experiences on sustainability, on steering such a big organization, a financial institution, towards sustainability, and all the excitement and also the challenges that this entails. This is what we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, let us give it a try at least then.
Let's give it our best shot. To all of the attendees, thank you so much for your patience, for waiting for us to be ready. If you have questions, please shoot them in the chat. There's also a Q&A. We'll be looking at both, and we will be taking the questions also and bringing them up to Fredrik during this session. So with no further ado, I would just like to thank you again, Fredrik Nilzén. You're the head of, you're steering the sustainability at Swedbank, which is one of the largest financial institutions in the Scandinavian and Baltic countries. You're operational in a number of countries in the EU and beyond. Also have an investing arm and a lot of responsibility coming with all of these actions that your company do. Maybe, Fredrik, it would be amazing to get started with a little bit of a presentation of yourself. How did you come about to lead this sustainability effort at Swedbank, and since when do you actually do this?
Yeah, good question, and thank you to begin with for having me. Right, it's a privilege, and I think the starting point for myself was that I've always been curious, maybe most on social aspects, to be honest, but environment and climate have grown upon me during the last 10 years, I would say. When I spent a couple of years in France finishing my studies, doing my master thesis, but then moved into management consulting in a German company, but then finally I landed with Accenture, being a global company that you might know of, some of you, and there to a very fundamental perspective, when I stepped in the first day, in fact, I met some colleagues who were ramping up the sustainability work within Accenture out of a Nordic perspective. I was based in Stockholm, in Sweden. And I saw the opportunity of using the power of Accenture for providing services to the non-profit sector, because they could normally not buy it. They couldn't pay the fees that were there. So we created within Accenture a hybrid business model, you could say, where the individuals moving into the projects, you went down to 50% of your salary during the project time. The company took away the fixed costs, and it all landed in a very reasonable fee for the NGOs. But the whole point being that the NGOs should pay something. Otherwise, they just get hypes of consultants and they are being put somewhere, but then the result is maybe not as important. I'm a little bit maybe too frank here, but that was what we saw. And then I worked for many years implementing that business model in the Nordics and abroad. So I led also a global account team for Save the Children for quite many years. And then in 2009, I also became the head of sustainability within Accenture in the Nordics. And I would say that in one hand, having the challenges that we face in the world today, climate obviously being one central one, but in the other hand, having technology and digital, right, as one of the key enablers in scaling your new business models or ways of providing a type of business that doesn't necessarily create as much damage as the normal ones. So worked primarily then with telecommunication companies. I were in Pakistan helping Telenor to implement their operating services there, especially in rural areas, but also working with some fast-moving consumer goods like furniture and clothes. And obviously there's a lot to do still on that perspective, on circularity as well. But then more and more also got interested in finance, because in 2015, finance got the first strict requirement of playing an instrumental part, right? In the Article 2C of the Paris Agreement, there we saw that finance need to shift capital flows to more sustainable investments. And then a lot of talks started. We have done a lot of talking over 5 years now, but I think also that quite a lot of frameworks have been put in place. And when I got the question in 2017, early, if I wanted to take this role as the head of group sustainability at Swedbank, I felt never seen myself in finance, but I saw that either you work with innovation or you work with the financial flow if you want to go to accelerate the impact towards sustainability. So I thought, why not? It's my bank. I've been there for almost 40 years, and I really like the values and what we stand for, being a bank for the many, both corporates and privates, and a lot of strong societal engagement. So I thought, why not? So then I moved in, and here I am almost 4 years later, and I think my idea that finance is the place to be to really accelerate the change in society, I can say is confirmed. I think it is. With that said, it's not easy and it is a journey, but it is the place, right?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You've already raised a lot of topics that we hope to get into in the hour that we have. You've already touched upon a few topics: digitalization, the social aspect of sustainability, the finance, the flows. What are the main buckets of your role, the key aspects of your role as the head of group sustainability? What are the key levies?
But I think on a day-to-day basis, I have a mandate in the group, across the group, to work with strategy development and developing, and expanding on the role of sustainability at the core of our business strategy. So our vision is a financially sound and sustainable society. We believe in creating that society, and we have a piece of that puzzle, in a sense. And we believe that we need to do that through our customers, right? And in the end of the day, it's the investments that our customers want to do. And we run an asset management company, but also then we do lending, right? So in the end of the day, we want to enable our customers to make sustainable choices. And it's not easy today. It's not easy to make all sustainable choices when you go into a grocery store. It's not easy when you're choosing your transport solution. And I think the challenge is that it's even more complex to run your personal finance or your corporate finance in a sustainable way. So we believe that we're here to help our customers on this journey. So on a day-to-day basis, I work with that strategy development, target setting, both direct targets on the environment or social for the company, but also then the indirect targets, like for the carbon emission reductions for our balance sheet, for example, through our mortgages or commercial real estate portfolio. But I also hold the overall framework that in a sense stipulates what kind of business that we can do and what kind of business that we don't want to do. And obviously the transformational part is the key for us. We want our customers, corporate customers, to survive, right? We don't want them to go out of business, but we believe that they need to change they need to take the risks, the sustainability risks into account when they're building their future business. And if they don't, we believe the risk is higher that they will go out of business as well. And in addition, they continue destroying our planet, right? So this is our our storyline, in a sense that it is through our customers and helping them do this. So I meet customers almost every day, corporate customers then mainly, but I also meet a lot of investors that trying to figure out how will they spend their money into our own bonds or in our own equity. But I also spend a lot of time with colleagues around the bank, educating. I'm not saying that I know everything, but I think the trick is that there is a competence lift needed in the entire society, in fact, and in banks as well. And last but not least, we're collaborating across the bank to also develop the tools, the processes that are needed in order to meet our customers. And here, I think a big object is around the availability of data, right? You can for sure find a lot of ESG data from many providers on listed companies today. But then you would also see, if you compare their conclusions from the ESG data, you would also see that they vary quite widely. They don't come to the same conclusions. So the whole space is immature. It is immature in terms of the data that exists. It's immature in terms of the quality of the data that exists, and it is also a lack of data in the the SME or SSE segment, smaller corporate customers, because they don't report. So and for us, I mean, being a bank for the many 600,000 corporate customers, we need data in order to automate and systemize our work. So I think there. So to backtrack, I mean, it's the strategy piece, it's the target setting, it's the competence building, it's our framework for seeing what we're doing and not doing, and then also then supporting units and implementing new regulations that are coming, but also product development in for the bank. So it's a quite wide mandate in a sense. But it's a lot of fun, and I have a great team, in fact, advocating for this on group level now as well.
Thank you so much, Fredrik, for this. Maybe we're skipping a couple of milestones there, but I had it got me thinking, since you mentioned the question of data or lack thereof. Plan A works very closely on gathering, centralizing the data, and then being able to give an output that is useful and
Exactly.
that actually companies can implement in the form of actions. And one of the big challenges, of course, for banks is to measure their portfolio. How does a bank like Swedbank is able to have all of the data kind of come back to this level? This is one thing that's quite interesting to us, and I wanted to ask you, how far are you in the carbon accounting of the bank? Is this one of the strategic objectives to cover all of the assets, all of the investments, or all of the scopes?
Yes.
And how are you faring with this big endeavor?
Yeah, but the easy answer is yes. That's a strategic area that we're working on. So yes, there's nothing else. That's where we need to head, right? But I can also conclude that we're definitely on the journey. If we look into our large corporate business, supporting big companies, there, as I said, there is a lot of data points to buy. We do already today from different data sources for our lending, but also for our asset management. But then as well, we apply own methodology on top of that, because in the end of the day, we need to understand the customer, right? And I think for large corporates, then we can afford, in a sense, to spend quite a lot of time on every customer, really digging deep. Even if it's time consuming. So I would say that amount of work is working fairly okay, but obviously a lot of improvements needed there as well. But a year back, we recruited a full new team on the large corporate services side with sustainability experts. So they are now supporting all client teams with large customers with the due diligence in finding out before meetings, putting out our opinion as well. Okay, you're a company like this, working in this sector. This is how your revenues look like. This is your planned capex. Are you ready or not for the transition? What are the steps you can take or should take? And how can we help you doing it? Getting out on the capital market or direct lending or whatever it is. So I think that is good. The big opportunity for change is then once again the retail market, right? The 600,000 plus companies, and there I can be totally open with you that already 3.5 years ago, we embarked on the first pilot with a kind of a lean startup within a larger organization with very high credibility on data sourcing. And we thought, great. we the whole Nordics already buy data from this actor, and they want to develop their service portfolio towards ESG data as well. We started working with them, but it didn't work. From an idea point of view, it was brilliant, but it didn't work. And then we moved along. We found a fintech company who promised that we're the best ones, taking the big data in the world, concluding what it means for a single company without being able to talk to the company. So we can more or less, know what the company needs to do, automated without even speaking to them. And we said, that would be fantastic. So we embarked on another pilot, and we tried for quite a while, but we also concluded that no, that didn't work either. It didn't provide the service that our corporate advisors needed in order to be trustworthy, well-oriented, and value-adding in the customer meeting. Neither it helped the customer to the extent that we wanted. So we are continuing our quest, I would say. We're continuing developing our own tools internally, but at the same time keeping an eye on the market, new fintech companies, and especially now we feel that some companies tend to become a little bit more mature, having a backbone and an infrastructure of their services, starting to get some clients, getting their services to be tested for real. So we're keeping our ears very open, especially then if there's an actor who can develop a service that would help our colleagues meeting clients in an automated or semi-automated way, but in the end of the day, also providing value to the customer, maybe in itself, maybe through a tutorial or self-assessment that they won't fall asleep under. So this is an emerging space, and we think that we will continue working with data here for 5 to 10 years, I think, at least.
In the foreseeable future. One thing is the data, of course, and another one is you mentioned it right before, the interpretation of the data. And as the field of sustainability, ESG impact is very broad and very open still. There are quite a lot of debates on which standard to follow, which reporting to actually fill in or actually submit. My question would be, do you have a favorite one, a standardized kind of reporting framework that you can recommend? And if yes, why? And if not, why not?
None is good, I think, as of now, but we believe that We believe that SASB, to some extent, having the sectorial approach is helpful, because then fairly direct you come into the material questions, the financial material questions that every sector has or subsector has. So we believe that is a good foundation. But what's missing there is the double materiality, right? The materiality that strikes impact is not only that we want companies to work on the material risks that create financial impact for them. We also want that the companies should work in areas that produces sustainability performance and improvements for society, right? So weighing in those two aspects have been really hard, and is still hard, I would say. But the impact perspective, we have worked a lot with UNEP-FI, which is the environmental program for financial sector of UN. And there we have jointly developed also the principles for responsible banking. 10 core principles. And the first principle being that our business strategy should align with the Paris Agreement, and we should contribute towards the fulfillment of the SDGs. And therefore, a new tool, new, but it's almost a year old now, was performed or developed, that is an impact assessment tool that we can use on our customers, or we can do it on our portfolio. So we did that first exercise, in fact, last autumn, trying to conclude, okay, we as a bank, given the revenue that comes into the bank through these types of services, where do we have our most positive impact on society development, and where do we have the most negative impact on society development, and then set targets out of those conclusions. So for now, we believe those are good, but we also see the development in the market where I think a lot of actors really fighting like crazy now to find a standardized approach, right? So we don't need to report on, I think we report against 15 plus different frameworks right now for the bank. It's crazy, but that is what we're doing.
And I mean, despite the efforts of standardization and unification, it seems that even on the industry level, the frameworks are still malleable and still communicating among each other to actually complete a full picture.
Yeah, and then you have the regulations, right? Especially the transparency regulations coming from EU with the taxonomy, with sustainable finance disclosure regulation, and here I also see a lot of development in the market where a lot of data providers they will spend a lot of investments in trying to figure out how they can make our life easier to conclude, for example, how our underlying balance sheet is aligned with the EU taxonomy or not. 5%, 7%, 10, 20, 25. So the data services, if I should go into one space where I think we will see a lot of development and growth, not saying that it's easy, but it is almost like Klondike, right? Right now,
the gold rush.
It's a gold rush on ESG data.
A green rush, some say, of course.
Yeah.
One thing, Fredrik, that I noticed in the strategy of Swedbank that caught my eye, 100% of all assets are with consideration to sustainability.
In the asset management, yeah.
In the asset management, that's correct. Can you tell us a bit more about this statement? Does this mean that all of the investment go through a hoop or a filtering of sustainability or ESG?
A basic filter, yes. All of our assets under management and the underlying both bonds and equity goes through a basic filter. We cannot have any companies that break norms or those kind of violations against international laws, and so there is, and we have also some basic exclusions like pornography or tobacco for that sense. And so there's a couple of a basic layer of sustainability screening at the bottom. And we did several years back now, we did a massive work in working through the entire fund portfolio on that basic level. So people should know that any fund you choose in the Swedbank Robur family, you should know that they've been through that basic piece. But then obviously on top of that, we have then seen that there is big opportunities to go further, right? And go more thematic specific on climate, for example, have funds that exclude fossil fuel entirely. And the big shift, in fact, that we did just before Christmas was that we finished off a long journey of excluding almost the entire amount of connection to fossil fuel production in Swedbank Robur. And that was
with a blacklist, right? A proper blacklist of divestment.
Yeah, but also concluding not only what companies that we don't want to invest in, but also the companies that might look a little bit brown today, but also showing the market that they have transformational targets, that they will shift their business, and we're seeing publicly that they are also moving in the right direction with the speed that is needed. So we also have such a list, in fact, publicly with companies that we really see is doing the work. Because in the end of the day, to be totally blunt in this call, the challenge with equity is that if you sell your shares, the whole logic builds on that someone else buys them, right? So if you withdraw your money, someone else will come there with their money. So what is then the net effect of your action? Obviously, if you have a very big part of the shares in a company, it can matter. And especially when you pool together, as we have done in some alliances, there we pool together all asset owners and all asset managers, and then we go to big companies and say, you know what? If you're not doing good enough, we will make sure that these 100 investors withdraw at the same time. So then it becomes something else. But equity market is difficult there. And therefore, we believe that if we can gather investors around a change that we believe is needed in a company, we can also stay, because we believe it's better for us staying together with the others, saying the same thing, and also then push the companies to shift. I'm not saying that is easy, but we believe that that is still important. It's an important strategy and methodology to use in the market at in some situations.
It really makes sense. We almost come to a situation where, somewhat paradoxically or not, the bank are the ones who have the power and the backbone to actually put in place these transition strategies for the market as a whole. And I find this really interesting. Maybe one question that came so far from on the chat from our friend Serge Zinu, looking for ESG funds to lead some finance rounds. Maybe it would be interesting for me to reframe a tiny bit. Suggestions are of course welcome, but do you have dedicated ESG focused fund or funds that have a higher standard of ESG to actually get into them among the galaxy of Swedbank or beyond?
We do, and that was what I said. I mean, all the funds go through a basic sustainability screening, but then on top of that, we have several funds with different types of themes, and that you can look at. I mean, if you want to have investments, only in renewable companies, for example, or if you have if you're keen on saving water on the planet, or if you're like our global impact fund with a super sharp focus on impact investments, then you should look at our Swedbank Robur Global Impact Fund, for example. And if you believe that the Paris Agreement alignment based upon the EU legislation of the benchmark, then you can go with those funds, for example. So yes, you could say that we have we say that we have funds with deepening sustainability criteria, right? But then as well, I think what we did now when we were implementing the regulations on disclosure regulation, then I mean it was a hard task for whole Europe. But okay, what is then from a European perspective seen as dark green versus light green? And I think what we concluded was that we didn't have a lot of funds left that wasn't either or, but a fairly large portion of funds on the light green and a few on the dark green. But it's kind of the dark green is, it needs to be said that according to regulation, those should be set up with the primary purpose of creating social impact, right? And we believe that in many times this comes hand in hand, rather that if you support companies in a fund that has the values right and the strategies right, but also the business models right, and moving along those targets, that sustainability integration also create financial value, right? We believe that these companies have better opportunities to survive. So we also think that financial sustainability is also part of this, because if a company is doing something good, we want that company to survive, right? So they can continue doing good, and therefore they need to also have a financial model that is sustainable. They need to continue earning money so they can invest in their company. So it really goes hand in hand. I met an entrepreneur today that is selling toothbrushes from bamboo, and you can think, how in the world could you build a company on that, given the big large conglomerates on like Colgate's and all. But believe it or not, he's selling 2.5 million toothbrushes every month, and they are all made of bamboo. Bamboo that is not food stock for koalas, by the way, because this specific bamboo is a high growing bamboo, so the koalas don't eat those leaves. Anyway, now it was really deep, but my point being that if we have companies solving something for society, we believe it goes hand in hand with good business. But yeah, sorry, you go.
No, please. I mean, the example you give is really a case in point of also the complexity of knowing whether you're doing good or not. You can buy bamboo that is also damaging potentially biodiversity, vice versa. So it is a very deep end game, that is for sure. One question, and it's in continuation of what you were saying. Sorry to have interrupted. I'd love to understand more how you perceive sustainability and positive business. How do these two concepts work together? You put them hand in hand together. Sustainable business model reinforce each other. Is this the way that you would position yourself, or how do these two things live together in your opinion?
No, we are in full convincement that is exactly how it looks. If you manage to incorporate not only the governance, good governance, because I would say that it is easy to think that, okay, here we have a company that is installing solar panels, right? Beautiful. We need more companies installing solar panels. That's all good. But the problem is that it doesn't mean that the company is well run. Doesn't mean that the owners are fair and good people, taking care of their personnel, or for that sake have good steering or internal steering or good control of their capital or whatever it is. So it's what we see now is that there are more aspects on the table that you need to incorporate. Knowledge that we didn't have before. We didn't know about climate change we have known for 50 years at least, to be honest, but it hasn't been knowledge that is accessible for quite a lot of people, to be honest, and it hasn't had that dignity as it has today. Before Corona or COVID-19, who did advisory towards customers that they shouldn't drive efficiency in their supply chain? You know, it was just in time, no stocks, don't lay on stocks because they just cost money and use more resources than you need. But now we're seeing, suddenly a shift that large companies, they try to create some resilience in their supply chain. Not only efficiency, obviously they need to be efficient as well, but they create resilience in their supply chain. Maybe they create, a little bit more of stocks, just because if the global market just blocks again, they would then need to have some stock of critical components closer to them, or, more local sourcing or whatever it is. So my point being that there is new knowledge in the space of running a company and providing something good for society. And if we find companies that are good in incorporating these pieces in their decision making, we believe that they are better off in creating a prosperous future for the company, but also for society. Because if they solve things for society, they will continue attracting both customers, capital, employees, and other stakeholders that love what they're doing. So it goes hand in hand, and then you could say, but Fredrik, you know that all investments will not pay off in the next quarter, and if you're in the stock exchange, you need to deliver. Yes, true. There are trade-offs, and not always the sustainable decision is the decision that will create the most, revenue in the next quarter. That I know. There's a lot of evidence on that. But if you have a long-term view of your company, we believe that that truth counts.
Fredrik, maybe one final question from me, and then there's a few from the board. You mentioned science-based targets, and you mentioned meaning to really keep, in line with these targets that are the reality of what we should aim. Are you optimistic to meet these targets within your own realm at Swedbank, but also globally? Do you think we're able to meet these ambitious targets?
I say yes. I'm a super optimist, so I think yes, it is needed. And I could also say that we need to, right? We need to. And I think what we should all remember is that the race to zero is all about us taking away 50% of our emissions, both direct and indirect emissions, every 10th year. That is the agenda we need in society today. And given the momentum right now, I have hope, because there is so much momentum in the market on countries to take leadership. US is back in the game. China is at least showing some light, even if they combine that with developing too much coal based energy still. So that can shift my positivity. I can say that as well. So there are definitely some building blocks that need to be in place there, but the momentum in the market and in the financial market right now is massive. There is so much capital in the market with low interest rate that just searches for the right investments, the investments that create that future. So my biggest worry is that how in the world will we produce all of those good companies or projects that drive the progress in this direction? EU, I mean, they have the Green Deal, and it's trillions of euros to be invested until 2027. how in the world should we find all of those projects? So there is a world of opportunity for companies that really want to make a shift and make a change, because there's so many around the corner that want to put in money for making it happen. There it is a good timing right now if you have good ideas. I'm not saying that it's easy to qualify an idea and make a business out of it, but the timing, I don't think, has ever been better. And good ideas being put in big companies or in big value change, your impact as startups or in a good idea can have very large impact in short time frame. And then obviously you need a business model for it as well.
I know some of the names on the attendee list, and I know that you've made really happy a few entrepreneurs and a few people that are actually managing also sustainability on very on large scale. So it's a fantastic, it's almost a good problem to have, I would like to say. Maybe I would like Fredrik to change a little bit the topic. We've got some really good questions from the audience. And one related to where we started with building your your team, and you praised your team at the beginning of this fireside chat. What are the key skills you're actually looking for when you're building a high team to do sustainability in a bigger enterprise like this?
Yeah. Last May, in fact, I pushed for an investment case in the bank that we really needed to expand in both the business areas and in the support functions, but also in the group level team that I run. And there we then, as I said, we went on the investment on concluding on sustainability experts, really. And then when I say experts, we looked for strong sustainability advisors, consultants to be recruited, because it's almost like working as a consultant, but within our company, meeting our customers and helping our customers to advance on this. But then we also said that in my team, given the amount of regulations coming, I needed a legal specialist in my team close to me. So we recruited that. And obviously then it's hard to look out in the legal market and find people with a lot of experience from sustainable finance legislations because they are new. But I found one. So Emilia joined the team. But then as well, we have also recruited, how would I put it, people that can be that are strong change makers and project managers, right? That have the capability of working with a business unit, with the management team, pushing them, steering for them to set targets and advance on the key topics they need to do. So I have recruited some of that expertise as well, recruited one with deep technical expertise in development practices, design thinking, and as she says, a technology geek, as technology is, a part of the company we're building. But then as well, we have moved into a situation where we see more and more that we need deep technical skills, on climate, carbon calculations, human rights. What I see in front of me is maybe that the biodiversity piece will need to be picked up more strongly. Obviously, you can learn new things, but it's also really great to be able to recruit strong individuals, right? And I think that is what I'm also pushing the business areas to do. Bring in people that doesn't necessarily are people that you would have recruited 5 years ago, because they bring something new. They bring a competence shift to the bank. And I think here digital and sustainability goes hand in hand, right? What the bank looked like in terms of people 10 years ago, only 10 years ago, is fundamentally changed now. because we have a big amount of developers and people, advancing on our digital platforms. And right now, I mean, we employ 1,500 individuals in the teams that proactively monitor and develop technology that can monitor billions and billions of transactions going through the bank every moment. So these type of skills, we have learned that we weren't good enough, and now we have ramped up. But if we can't manage to protect our infrastructure from money laundering, for example, uh, the result of that is more criminality in society, is more human trafficking, is more weapons, is more drugs. So the task of a bank is so important, and the only way of advance our work there is to some extent through technology, right? So deep technology, deep themes, or content expertise in sustainability themes, but then as well being able to work with others, right, to advocate for change and steer for change. That, I think, is the combination then of skill sets that we're looking for.
Thanks so much, Fredrik. And then one last, because we do have a couple of minutes left, and you mentioned regulation, and I think this question is really interesting from Jan Jaap. So just very recently, we saw this as well. Swedbank signed the Net Zero Banking Alliance during the climate summit alongside Joe Biden. The Swedbank is also signatory to a number of covenants around sustainable banking. Curious to know how strict are the commitments pertaining to these regulations, more specifically the Net Zero Banking Alliance. Is this binding? Do you have to adapt certain things, or are you rather a driver and to define what the commitments are going to be? How do you look at all of these alliances popping up in the race or in the space for net zero?
I think they play a role, I would say. Otherwise, we wouldn't have signed up for it. But we felt that the principles for responsible banking, us signing already 2 years ago, and where we also co-developed, where we committed our future business strategy towards the Paris Agreement. For us, that was, a very strong statement, but also then contributing to the fulfillment of the SDGs. Then you can say that the Net Zero Banking Alliance was almost like a way of getting more actors into that game, right? And also putting out more strict requirements on intermittent targets on 2025, 2030. So not only committing to, okay, in 2050 we see a net zero world, right? It's easy to say. How many CEOs will most banks change until 2050? So it's a matter of bringing down targets. And yes, they are voluntary commitments, but they are super sharp. We go out and promise the market these ambitions. We press release these things, and we promise the market. And I can promise you that when meeting analysts, but also mainly then investors, they want proof on our target setting. They want proof on our delivery towards the target setting, and they keep us awake on this. So making a commitment, and now I think the alliance, the GFANS alliance now for the whole financial industry, driven by Mark Carney for Glasgow now as well. The new thing there is that the carbon law is being picked up. And there, it's 50% reduction in the next 10 years. So it's much sharper than before. And what we believe is that we cannot advocate for another society, right? This is the society we need to create. But then the IEA scenario that came out last week, right? Then we also conclude that something is also needed through the hands of ours, right? There are behavioral changes that are needed in the world in order to reach these scenarios. And if the society, if politicians, civil society, corporates, if we and individuals, if we're not acting on this agenda and making it happen together, it won't happen. So I mean, yes, we're putting out the target in the market that we don't have full control of. We're dependent that change will happen in the market, but we believe that we need to be proactive. We need to show that leadership in order to create that momentum. And if we need to try our very best in just doing it. Yeah, we might fail, but then we need to be, see ourselves in the mirror and say, we tried our very best in making it happen in the markets that we operate. There is no planet B, even if Elon Musk is looking for a second planet, right? And I think he will succeed. If he survives, he will succeed. But I think we need to we need to reshape the way we live and work on this one as well.
Fredrik, this is a wonderful statement to finish our panel on. We're right on time. Thank you so much for answering all of these questions. I'm sorry to the attendees that we weren't able to answer the questions of. We will add them to the digestion that we publish on our academy and make sure that we get some form of answer. Sorry again for you. Fredrik, thank you so much for spending some time to share some of your knowledge, some of your experience, and some of your positivity and optimism. We're really grateful that you were able to make it, and we will be in touch for following up with the actions of Swedbank and following very closely.
Yeah, and last words then. I mean, maybe. I mean, bright minds like you, you're entrepreneurs. You know your stuff, you know your thing, you have your ideas. Look at banking. Please look at banking. It might not look as the most exciting piece when at the first glance, but the impact potential is massive. So look at banking and be constructive in finding your opportunities to put in your innovations within the system, because then it can be really good. So with those words, good luck.
Thank you so much, Fredrik.
Pick the fight. Cheers. Bye.
Absolutely, we're all together in this. And thank you everyone who was able to join even for part. We'll be releasing the recording along with some of the questions that we've answered or not. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and rest of the week. Bye-bye.